Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Grubbly. Today I want to talk about the Acolyte changes from the 0.3 patch notes. So I've gone ahead and put together a picture listing out what all the effects are to help get it organized, and a couple little extra details. This is going to help us figure out what the options are for Acolyte and figure out like what seems good, what not. Talk about what my plans are for build ideas and what I'll probably do. And then I'm curious to hear what other people's thoughts are. So to start out, let's just go through what each are. Starting from the top, we've got the new volatility node where you gain 1 volatility when you inflict elemental ailments, and with no volatility downside, which is huge because it deals 100 physical damage per volatility on you with the detonation. So you'd have to stack a ton of armor to be able to survive that with any significant amount of volatility, and this will now allow that. The one part that I'm not sure about is if you can get volatility. So let's say you use a skill like Frozen Locust, right? And just as an example, I'm going to go to a zone and I'll use a Frozen Locust and we'll just count how many mobs we freeze. Because if this freezes the whole group right away, and each one counts right away in an instant, then you can stack volatility really quickly, really well. So like here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 guys. I do 6, and they all just did it instantly. Now, we go back to town just for safety. Volatility at base, according to the wiki, we've got over here, volatility, right here. Volatility can be gained once every 0.1 seconds. So normally volatility can be gotten 0.1 seconds, in which case you have to you have to attack or you have to hit 10 times in 1 second in order to get the full amount in a second. However you want to think about that in terms of how fast you're attacking or how many hits you need to land. You're needing to stack attacks quickly in order to be able to get the volatility stacks up. So, and the timer for building it up, the timer to the detonation, I believe is 4 seconds. Yeah, volatility detonates after 4 seconds. So you need to be gaining more and more volatility in order to avoid the detonation. And then once it detonates, you've got the 10-second buff. So in our case, we're not worried about the downside, which is great. I think this is still going to work where it takes 0.1 seconds to be able to gain another stack of volatility. So you're still going to be wanting to apply multiple elemental ailments frequently, which means you're going to be wanting to deal multiple elemental damage types in order to get this to proc more frequently and stack up the volatility as fast as possible. And if you're going with this node, I'm thinking that on the tree we're looking at going for this notable over here, which is 25% chance that when volatility on you detonates, you regain an equivalent amount of volatility. So that when this procs, this lets you keep your stacks going and gaining more and more extra damage as DPS or extra damage as chaos. So that's good. It's just that the way the tree is now, this is the tree for version 0.8. This is 0.2 tree. This is not with the 0.3 update. You take 1, 2, 3 extra nodes of chance to gain volatility on kill, which is not bad, but 4 points is a lot of investment when 3 of them are relatively dead compared to we're already gaining a stack every time we apply an elemental ailment. So as a review, the typical ailments are shock, ignite, freeze. You can do the alt ones for electrocute and I don't know if is sap a thing in POE2? I don't remember. Those 3 are the primary ones. Chill is an ailment as well, I believe. I think that does count. Brittle and Scorch are the other ones that I think I'm thinking of, but I'm not sure how viable that is to get. But Chill, certainly you'd be getting in addition to Freeze, and Shock is pretty easy to do if you're adding elemental, if you're adding lightning damage, and then Ignite, at base, could be viable. Certainly once you go over here to the second node, it'll be viable to get those, but it's going to be cycling, and you'd be getting one of the extras, and it's only when it lands on Ignite would it be easy to do this consistently if you're not running a fire skill. So anyway, that's the first node. The second node is that chaos damage contributes to Ignite and Ignite Magnitude, which is actually really big for DPS, or Freeze or Shock, and it cycles randomly between them every 2 seconds. So it's an interesting one. It's an interesting mechanic. The Freeze, I think most people tend to use Freeze stuff already because Freeze is just really strong. I know, maybe it's just my bias because I already run Freeze. Shock, certainly, that adds extra DPS, and then the Ignite, like we said, that's just straight up damage, so that could be good. And it also does tie in well with the volatility, because once you're gaining all that extra chaos damage and you're going to be what's the word, detonate, that's the word. When you're detonating that intermittently to keep your buff going for the extra chaos damage, then they're just going to play off of each other. So this is actually a really strong DPS arm, and I have a feeling like this is going to be the most commonly chosen way to play an Acolyte in 0.3. So then next we've got the node over here, which is unchanged. This small passive is probably still going to provide 7% chaos res. The notable gives plus 10 max chaos res and doubles your chaos res. So without any gear, just this one little passive and the notable give you 14% chaos res. So you can get up to 85%. The next one down is the new node that they've changed, where you get life and mana leech. It just says leech is based off of chaos and fizz, so that applies to both life leech and mana leech. However, asterisk, leech mod sold separately. This node does not give you the leech itself. What it does is allow your leech to apply based on the chaos damage as well, instead of just physical. And so you still need to get the mod for life leech or mana leech, whichever you're going for, or both, on your gear. Now there's also the new keystone that they've added in. I don't remember if they specified where on the tree it is. Let's double check the patch notes real quick. If we find leech, add a new keystone to the east of the monk's starting location. So this sounds like it's over in the general area of where Eternal Youth is right now, which is like somewhere over here. So here's Monk. It's like out in the east, unless maybe it's down here a little bit, which would make sense because here's where a lot of these elemental nodes are. So, maybe it's somewhere. Let's see. So this is lightning. This is cold. This is fire. Maybe we get the keystone over here or something. And this keystone allows you to recover mana leech based on elemental damage types, not just physical. So depending on where it is and where the new tree leads us to go, if you're building around chaos as an Acolyte, then this is probably a better way to get mana leech. But since we're not getting energy shield leech from the mana leech anymore, you still have to figure out your life or just use potions and whatnot, unless you are CI, in which case you have no mana leech. I hear they changed Eternal Youth also, but that's outside the scope of the video. I'll get to that actually. You know what? Let's look it up because it relates to build plans. Eternal Youth. I heard this was nerfed. Passive skill no longer causes your life flask to recover energy shield instead, and now causes your life flask to have 50%. What? Keystone no longer causes your life flask to recover energy shield, and it now causes your life flask to have 50% less recovery. So what does it do? All they've said is that there's a nerf, but obviously it's not going to be just a pure downside. Right now, life recharges instead of ES. Life recovery from flask to flask to ES. Okay, so what it's saying is you only recharge life, like your life recharges instead of energy shield, but then you can use your flasks on your ES. And now here it's saying can no longer recover ES via your energy shield via your life flask, and your life flasks also have 30% less recovery. So what it's saying is that now Eternal Youth is purely for recharging life, and because you're gaining that benefit, you're getting less healing benefit from your flask. So this is purely a life build thing, which this does not make sense on the monk side of the tree. I wonder if they moved it over to like on the warrior side where it would be relevant. There's no life stackers going on over here, so that's an interesting choice. Maybe I guess for like rangers rangers or Amazon or somebody that's going armor and evasion as opposed to energy shield, so they don't need the ES, but then they want to be able to do life recharge. Could be, but then I imagine they would also want their life flasks. All right, so getting back to this, that's the whole leech stuff in a nutshell. Like I said, you need the mods separately. This applies for both. If you take this node, previously the small node that's increased chaos damage, because it was probably 12% increased amount of leech amount or something generic like that. Maybe it'll specify life and mana leech or something like that, because these were relevant because this was the leech arm before. Now that they're swapping that, this is probably going to be the one that has the small leech node. Next down the list, we've got the Into the Breach wheel. So this one is a buff overall. Certainly if you're just going for the one notable, I think, based on what they said, that they took the double duration that was previously on this node, just for comparison for those who aren't familiar. The Into the Breach lets the Flames of Chayula show up on the screen, and the purple ones give you added chaos damage, 7% at base. This is in 0.2. And then the red flames grant you life leech, and the blue flames grant you mana leech. And the red and the blue and the purple all start at 7%. And then the small notables here, are small passives, are just for skill speed. And then Lucid Dream, the second one, gave you effect and duration are double. So this was 100% increase. Or actually it might even be just like 100% more. It's just a pure doubler. So they started out at 5 seconds. With this second node, you get them for, the purple starts out at 5 second duration. The red and blue ones they're not duration based. With this node, the purple flames lasted 10 seconds. They don't refresh the duration, by the way. So let's say you have purple, and then you have to go another 10 seconds before you can get another purple. The 3 here, you'd get 5, or even if you had the second one, you would get your buff here, and the timer is ticking down. Let's say you have 2 seconds left on your timer and you pick up another purple flame, you'll have 1 extra stack for another 2 seconds, and then the prior stacks will have fallen off. So it was really hard to keep the flame count high on your purple ones for DPS. The doubling here just made it so instead of 7% mana and life leech to you from the red and blue flames, the doubling made it 14%. So it was a decent, nice chunk of mana and life healing. It was helpful for sustain and bossing. It was nice in that way. And then this node up here for increased amount of mana leeched, that did apply for the blue ones. I don't remember if it applied for the red ones as well. But when you take, where is it? Over here. So like, again, increased amount of mana leech. Nodes like this on the tree that gave you increased amount of mana leech applied to the blue flames of Chayula also. So now what they said they've done is they've moved the effect of the second node into the first node. So if I'm understanding that correctly, what that means is the doubling should apply to the duration, and that would be 10-second duration at base, which will make it much easier to keep your purple stacks high. And then also what they've done is, rather than taking the doubling or the effect amount, they've nerfed that down to starting at 0 to 50% increase, I guess by character level 11 or 90 or whenever it hits the top tier. So that part is a nerf, but it'll be easier to keep your stacks of purple flames up for your damage. Then if you take the second node, this one lets you choose one of the flame types and all of your flames will be that. Now what this means is you're getting 3 times as many of that flame. So thinking about it mathematically, ignoring duration, we lost the buff. We have, even thinking about it at the maximum, we have only 50% of the gain here compared to what we had before. And by the way, this is an increased effect. I don't know if this is going to be a more multiplier with other sources of increased effect, such as support gems for effects from the drops. Let me just look it up real quick. I forget the term for it. Here. Into the breach. Remnants. That's the word I'm looking for. Like here it was doubled. And there are support gems which give you buff to that. Remnant, no. Let's show all gems for remnants. Here we go. So dissipate. Remnants spawned by supported skills have 35% increased effect. So the question is that multiplicative or additive with the buff amount on the ascendancy? I have a feeling it's going to be additive, but we'll see. So, even at max, this is 50%. Just that one support gives 35%. The rip was not one. Magnetism just allows you to grab them from further. And here we go. Yeah, 25% increased here. So if they're additive, then the maximum we're looking at is 25 plus 35 is 60, and then up to 50 from the tree, from the ascendancy. So a total of maximum 110% increased effect. Previously, we could have more. So on the top end, this is a nerf to the DPS. However, like I said, one flame type, even with the 10-second duration, it was hard to keep purple stacks up at 10, and you would average maybe 5. And that was 5 times 14. So that was, I guess that would be 71. No, sorry, 70, something like that. With this, triple the number of purple flames, assuming you're going for DPS like most people would be. You can think of it as, even on the top end here, half of the benefit, 3 times the benefit. So total of 1.5%, 1.5x on DPS. So something like 50% on average DPS increase from this branch if you're taking both. We'll come back to build ideas in a minute. So next up, the next wheel here is the new item, which is the illusion bomb. I noticed on the video, it said like level requirement 46, and it had 410% attack effectiveness. There is a delay. I'm sure you can support it with the duration to decrease the duration, or decrease the cooldown. That one. Cooldown, not expanse. Hourglass is additional cooldown. Unleash allows cast time. We'll come back, but I'm thinking ingenuity. Here we go. Increased cooldown recovery rate. Especially the fact that we can now put this on multiple things. I think this is going to be an absolute one that you put on that, because 30%, I think it was like 4 point something seconds in there. So even calling it 5 seconds, that takes off, 1.5 seconds. That's a lot. So with that big percentage, I think this is probably going to be actually a useful skill for DPS. I'm probably going to play with that. So then we've got darkness, the redheaded stepchild of the build. Same darkness as before. You lose all your spirit, you gain a certain amount of darkness, and then 8 darkness per character level. But they brought in the previously it was over here where you had half the duration of the reservation. So the way darkness works, I can show you here on this character. Over here I've got this purple bar instead of my spirit bar, and this gives me the darkness. This is an extra defensive layer. When I take a hit, not damage over time, as of right now, I assume that has stayed the same, hit damage only, it will take from the darkness first before it starts taking from energy shield or life. Can't do spirit, can't do spirit gems. There's a lot of power lost there. It's very debatable about whether this is actually worth it or not, but that's the mechanic. So this is adding extra tank. I went with this for playing in hardcore, but it's not popular because there's so much power tied into spirit gems. The second node here allows you to further scale that by getting 1% increased maximum darkness per 1% chaos res you have. So I did the math over here, and at character level 80, just with this first node and the small passive, which gives 10% increased max darkness, same thing here. Previously this node did as well, but that was when it was attached to the damage per darkness, which is another nerf. They took away the damage from darkness, which is really, really sad. Gain 1% of extra chaos per 20 unreserved darkness. So just as an example of what this was in 0.2, I have here at character level 58, I have 620 darkness. When I am on fully unreserved darkness, if I had that node as well, that is 5 times 6 is 31. So plus 31% added damage as chaos. And then that can scale up. So no use crying over spilled milk. We don't have that anymore. Instead, this gets extra scaling of our max darkness. So again, it's extra tank. And what I did here was, if you took the one node only, I think at character level 80, that would be 814 darkness. And then at character level 80 with this second node only, not this node up here, you'd be at 1443 darkness, which is a pretty large chunk. And that's with these two nodes and these two smalls, which each give 10% increased darkness. I did that math additively, so I counted that as a 20% increase to max darkness, not 10% and then 10% again. And then if you go all in on the defense and you're going for the chaos res wheel for an extra 10% of max chaos res, you can get that up to 1517. If you're just looking at it for tank and chaos, like defenses for the darkness, I don't think that's worth 3 ascendancy points. So those are all the options for the build. What you choose is going to depend on what skill you're doing and how you're trying to build. My thoughts are this: if you're not actively planning something around spirit gems, the darkness for just one node, it's 814. That's a fairly large amount of tank. If you're playing hardcore, this might be the way to go if you just want that extra defense. With the 5% cooldown, it could be relatively strong. You're avoiding stuff, you move around for a while, you have your large chunk of darkness defensive layer refill pretty quickly, and then you can take more hits without dying. Unless you're in hardcore, I think most people won't want that as much as they want the damage. as I said before, I think a lot of people, I think most acolytes are going to come here for the volatility. The chaos res is very quality of life for getting your chaos res up, because you don't need as much on your gear. You know, like as I said, just this one little passive and this node gives you 14% already. And so even to get up to 75, you only need another 61 chaos res, which means you only need another 31 chaos res on your gear, or 36 if you want that off of here, up to the full 85% cap. Sorry if I messed that math up, but whatever. The leech, I don't know if that's worth it, but we'll see. Assuming people are coming in for the DPS, they're already going to be taking 2 points here. My personal thought is, what I'm going to try is for sure the volatility node, and trying to build around, probably honestly still Frozen Locust. The creeping ground from Frozen Locust spreads out a chilled ground, which means as mobs move on to that, I'm applying an elemental ailment. So I should be gaining volatility constantly. So that will be nice. We'll see how it plays out, but definitely going to play around with that. I think this point is worth it, but I think this is going to be a top end sort of thing. Like this might be the 4th ascendancy. If I'm playing softcore, I'm not going to take this most likely, but I'll have to see. Nobody likes dying, especially when you lose stuff in the maps, so it could be relevant. I think the first 3 points, which is what we're going to be getting in the campaign, probably going to be this one first, or this one first. I think Into the Breach is going to be stronger and more beneficial now. I'm not sure about the one flame type. I think just this 1 point is actually going to be very big because it gives you life and mana regen in addition, and they are 7%, and you can scale that up a bit. But the purple flames that you do get intermittently being 10% at base is really nice. It's only going to be, so here's the thing. I said 7%. We don't know. It didn't list it in the video whether this was the 5 or 10%, as 5 second or 10 second at base, and it didn't list the 7% or the 14% at base. It didn't say anything in the picture they had of the skill. So if it's 14% and 10-second duration, this is really strong, and I honestly would probably take this first, even before the volatility. Volatility, yeah, because even if you just get 5 flames in that time period, that already puts you up either 35% chaos as extra if it's 7%, or what do we say, it was about 70 if it's 70 if it's 14% at base. So that's already a lot of extra, and it comes with mana recovery and life recovery. Not a lot, but some. And personally, I like chasing after them. It's a fun little mini game. So probably this node first, then the volatility. This is largely going to depend on the tree. I imagine that some of the nodes are going to be related to volatility. And as I mentioned before, definitely going to want to, if you're taking that volatility, you definitely want to go for this notable here for regaining the volatility, because that's going to let us cycle and build up, a lot of the time. These nodes are not worth it. This is just more chance to gain on kill, which if we're doing this as the Acolyte, you're already gaining a lot of volatility. And this max volatility is 30 is going to be a nerf if you're on an Acolyte. So this is really, the purpose of this is to limit it if you are taking the physical damage, because it's dealing 100 phys damage to you per volatility. So with this node, it limits it to incoming 3000 physical damage when you explode, or when you, detonate your volatility. Not helpful for us as an Acolyte. So 1, 2, possible third. Honestly, I wouldn't worry about the leech node here if you are taking Into the Breach, because Into the Breach gives you mana leech and life leech, and it's not based on the boss's leech resistance or the enemy's leech resistance. It's just the flames. You don't have as much control over it because you have to go and seek out the flames, But if you can handle that, it saves you the passive. It comes with a combination of recovery and a lot of DPS. That's if you don't take this node. If you take this, you're presumably going all in on DPS, and you're making them all purple flames, so you can be pretty much, most of the time up at 10 stacks, which is, if this is 7% still, then you're looking at 10 stacks, you're getting up to 70% added chaos as extra. And if it's 14, you're looking at 140. And then that could certainly be worth it. But again, you're not going to, even with like all the flames being there, I think you'll get up there relatively often, but you won't sustain constantly at 10 stacks. Like I said, this is, I think, going to be actually a big damage. We do dodge a lot. There's a lot of DPS tied at, because anytime you see the large damage percent for attack effectiveness, that is a big indicator of how much DPS the skill is going to do. So that's my thoughts. That's my plan. Into the breach, volatility, probably the illusion bomb, and then maybe this, or maybe just all in on damage. We'll see. I'm going to be starting on softcore trade. I am looking to just, push the build, get to some bossing. I'm not big on chasing the economy. I'm much more into helping people out. My account name is Grubbly Stonewright, #6886. I'm totally down to help people, especially later on in the league, once I've I don't need my currency to keep pushing my build or anything. Then I'm just gonna be looking to help people out on stream. Come check it out. I do stream on Twitch. I have a Discord. I'd love it if people hop in. I like to talk about stuff outside of streaming hours. And then also, certainly if you have questions or want some help, that'll be the easiest way to reach me. If you're not on the same time as stream or can't watch that, all the above. So I'll leave the links for that down below. And I'm curious, what are you guys looking to play? I'm up and down on the Acolyte changes, because like I said, there are some nerfs in here. Losing the energy shield leech is really sad. This totally bricks Quarry Horror's Flicker Strike Acolyte from 0.2, which is sad, but oh well. Aside from some of the other changes, like the weapon swap rules about having things on certain weapon sets and not others. But anyway, yeah, curious to hear from you guys, see what you like to do. I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you guys in the next video. Good luck on your league start. If I can, by the way, one more last thing. I'm going to try, once the tree comes out, I'm going to try and put together a build, and then I will try and put together a build guide to put out before league start. If anybody else is interested in running the same sort of thing as I am, probably going to be Unarmed Monk Acolyte. I've been playing around with the unarmed stuff even in 0.2. I like the power fantasy of it, and let's just face it, some of the stuff in the video, let me pull it up here. I don't care about this part as much, but I'd slowed it down here. I just want to, actually I'm going to leave it slowed down because I want to show. Let's back up here. Here we go. Watch this. Boom. Boom. You see that roundhouse kick? How sick is that? I love it. I had an idea about the third monk ascendancy being having a skill based on kick, since we've got all these punches, and having something that gives added damage based on the defense type on your boots. So if you have armor on your boots, it adds extra fire damage, and if you have energy shield on your boots, it adds extra lightning or cold or dex for whichever other one, and if there's ward on your boots, it adds chaos or something like that. Because I was like, there's no kicks in POE, we already saw on the Infernalist, you can add a skill, so why not make it a kick? And now it's in there just from, that character was obviously running Hollow Palm, so I'm probably going to run Hollow Palm. I have to see him, play around with it once the tree comes out and see what looks like it'll work well. But I like that power fantasy. Even if it doesn't work well, I might run it because that's how I roll. I like to play what seems cool to me. So anyway, thanks for watching. Take care. Hope to see you guys in the next video.